Hi guys, my name's Kelvin White and welcome to Ultimate Tropicals. This is part 2 of the Paludarium tropical rainforest build. If you managed to watch the first video, then I gave an overview of the entire project, what I'm setting out to do. Towards the end of that video, then we assembled all the glass partitions to make the base frame of the Paludarium. Now things have moved on a little bit now, it's been a few weeks. It was my intention to record the installation of all the plumbing and technology, but there was a number of issues that cropped up with that, and it was rather time consuming, so I've had to fast forward a little bit. But what I'll do now is take you through where we are at this present time and what we intend to cover in this video. Okay, so I've made a start on the false bottom. The false bottom is actually about 20 centimeters in depth, and you can see I just have a couple of pieces of background just in place for effect. Obviously they still need to be fitted in. If we come across this side, it was my intention to begin with to have a external canister filter, and that was down here in the cupboard. The problem being that it's a massive lift to bring that water right the way up to the top of the tank and out and down into the cabinet, and try as I might, I just couldn't get that to work effectively, so I had to ditch that idea, and I've now gone with an internal filter. And of course the filter's there for two reasons. One is to filter and to house the bacterial colonies for the fish that are going to be in this bottom section. And of course the other reason is that it needs to lift water and circulate across here and into the head of the waterfall, which will then come back down here, and then of course it will just keep getting recycled. Now I seem to have that working okay now. The tank has been tested, it was holding water for about a week, and the good news, no sign of leaks, so all that's working okay and the plumbing's fine. Now the other thing I installed was a mist king. Actually that was relatively easy to install. The glass top section was pre-drilled, and I have 3 nozzles in place, and that works from a high pressure system, and the pipe again comes down and it will go into the cabinet at the bottom. And if I open that up, you can see the water container in the bottom. So that's there to supply water to the misting system. But the other technical aspect is, of course, the water is only actually 20 centimeters deep, and although I want it to come up to the leading edge there, I certainly don't want it to be going over. Now each time the misting system is switched on, of course that's going to put liquid into the tank, and the tank level will rise, so it needs then an overflow, and that overflow is situated down in there. The placement of this was really critical because of course if it's too high then the tank's going to overflow, and if it's too low then I'm going to have a gap under the leading edge. So again, trial and error. I tried with a small pipe and that didn't really work very well, so I've put in a larger pipe now. That has now been tested and it works absolutely fine, and the water will go through that green pipe and it will come back down back into this reservoir that supplies the mist king. Now the whole idea of course is that as the mist or rain falls, that's going to find its way down through the substrate, and then that will filter into the water course at the bottom. So what I'm hoping over time is that all the nutrients that will be in the substrate will be recycled, and when they fall as rain, then of course that will be beneficial to the plants. Okay, that brings me on to today's project then, which is the waterfall. And as you can see, I've used like a styrofoam base, and I've just cut out some large chunks of that. And what's going to go over the top of this now is a sand and cement mixture. Now I haven't done this indoors, but my whole back garden is full of false rock that I've built, so it is something that I've done many times before. And the project today is to apply that sand and cement to this template and build out a realistic looking waterfall. Okay, so I've had to fast forward a little bit because this is quite a time consuming job. It did actually take a couple of hours to get all the render into place. And what you find if you do this is sometimes the water content, it will actually, parts of it will fall off, and you just have to keep putting it back on again. So it's just the way it is, especially in a vertical lift like this one. But it's sort of hardened off a little bit now, but the timing of this is quite crucial, because if you leave it to set too much, you won't be able to work with it. At the moment it's still quite soft, but it's a lot of the moisture is now probably seeped out of it. And the next step now is to brush it and try and produce the rock-like look to it. And then the next step after that will be to carve it out and get the actual like three-dimensional definition of it. So as I say, the next step now is to use the paintbrush, brush the actual outline of the rocks and try and give it some rock-like appearance. Okay, so that's the forming of the rocks completed, and now the next step is actually to carve out the individual rocks to give it that 3D dimension. So that's a waterfall all carved out now, and I'm quite happy with the outcome. So what's going to happen, you can already see it starting to dry off a little bit now. It's going to take a couple of days to dry out properly, and then I'll come back again and I'm going to add some colours, some brown, some black for the joints, a bit of yellow splashed in there as well, just to bring it to life a little bit more. And then the final stage will be to add a waterproofing solution over the whole lot, bearing in mind that some parts of it are actually going to be submerged in water all the time, and others are going to have constant water flow through them. So it's a process I've used in the outdoor garden with good effect, and that's what I'll be applying in here. Okay, so as you can probably see, the build is advanced now, and I've actually completed the coloration of the rocks, trying to make them look a little bit more lifelike. So there are 3 colours used. I mean, this is basically just a cement additive colouring compound that you can buy, and it was a base colour of brown. There's a splash of yellow in it, and of course the crevices are done in black. So tons of videos on YouTube if that's something that you really want to get into. But as I say, the coloration is complete now. It is a bit darker than it will be. I mean, it will fade off, bearing in mind it's only been done for a few days. And the final task now to complete the waterfall build is to add a waterproof solution. And this solution is safe for use on ponds and such like. So I'm going to apply that across the whole build. And although, of course, all the water is contained within the paludarium, so there's not really a problem with it escaping, it's just to really stop the water from penetrating into the cement and causing any issues. So that's the whole idea, and as I say, that will pretty much complete the waterfall build. So without further ado, I'll get some solution applied. So that concludes the build of the waterfall. The next step is going to be foaming out the background and the 2 sides, adding in the hardscaping. Still need to build out the false bottom, and of course the most exciting part will be when we get to add in the plants. So if this tropical rainforest paludarium build has been of interest to you, then hope to see you all again in part 3. And until then, bye for now.